Yes, I'm AV. I've been in the military for 40 years. I've been in JuraFit for 4 years.
I'm Denise. I've been doing JuraFit virtually for a little over a year, and it's been so beneficial to me. JuraFit is an awesome program. I encourage you to try it. It helps with movement, mobility, and just unlimited things. And now Toby will show us how to use the resistance bands.
Nearly all older adults can safely meet the national recommendations of engaging in low to moderate intensity physical activity. Do not exercise if you have any symptoms that have not been evaluated by your healthcare provider, such as pain in your chest, abdomen, or joints, unusual swelling, difficulty catching your breath, dizziness, or fluttering in your chest. If you experience any of these symptoms, stop and reevaluate before continuing. If you have further questions, discuss your exercise plan with your healthcare provider.
Hey JuraFitters, thanks for joining us for this resistance band workout. For this workout, you can use resistance bands if you have them. That's what we'll be using. Otherwise, you can use anything that you have around the house, whether that's a jug of milk or water, laundry detergent bottles, really kind of anything that you have that adds a little bit of resistance, a little bit of weight. You could do this seated or standing, so either option is suitable for this workout. If you're going to use resistance bands, just a quick word about resistance bands. They vary in resistance level. So the thicker the band, the more resistance. So the ones that we have here, yellow is going to be the thinnest band, so that's going to be the easiest. And then it goes red, green, blue, and then black is going to be the thickest band. So that's going to provide you the most resistance. And you can adjust those based on the type of exercise you're doing, whether it's a large muscle groups like your legs or your chest or your back, or something smaller like your shoulders. So the smaller muscle groups are going to require probably a lighter band than some of those large muscle groups. You can also adjust the resistance level based on your grip. So you can tighten up that grip, make that band a little tighter. That's going to provide you a little bit more resistance, versus if you need a little less, you can just loosen up that grip a little bit, and that'll give you a little bit of slack, won't stretch that band as much, and it won't be as difficult. So a couple different ways you can adjust that throughout the workout. You can also use multiple bands, so feel free to double up a band, whether that's putting 2 bands together or 3 bands together, and then again adjusting for those various exercises, whether it's a large muscle group exercise or maybe a small muscle group exercise. So this workout you could do seated, you could do standing, whatever your preference might be. Both are suitable, and you just need a little bit of space around you, not a lot of room. So go ahead and get yourself set up for that, and I'll see you back here in a sec. All right, so we're gonna start this workout with our warm-up. So our warm-up is meant to kind of loosen the body up a little bit, get the body moving some, get that heart rate a little elevated, and get that blood flowing before we get into the resistance portion of our workout. So we're gonna start with some marching, so just marching in place. If you're seated, just doing some seated marching. This workout, like all of our others, it's all self-paced, so feel free to speed some of this stuff up in the warm-up, or during the resistance exercises, feel free to use a heavier weight or a lighter weight resistance band, so just adjust it based on your ability, your needs. All right, so then we're gonna get into some side stepping. So we're gonna work on that side to side mobility. Just taking one step to the side and then heading back that opposite way. So you bring those feet together, step out to the side, back together. Other way, just back and forth. Same thing if you're seated, you're just moving those feet side to side. If you'd like, you could bend those knees a little bit if you're doing this from a standing position. It's gonna work those legs a little bit more. All right, then we're gonna get into some high knees. So for this one, have something sturdy if you need it. It is a bit of a balance exercise since we're narrowing that base of support and we're kind of going up on one leg. So high knees, we're just bringing those knees up a little higher, slowly back down. So it's kind of like marching, except we're just a little bit more deliberate, a little slower, and bringing those knees up a little higher. You can do the same thing from that seated position. Just want that torso to be nice and tall. All right. So next we're gonna do some leg swings. So if you're standing, it's gonna be slightly different. So if you're standing, it's kind of a two-part movement. Think about doing a butt kick, so you're kicking that leg back behind you, and then you're swinging that leg forward. So back behind, swing forward. And again, having something sturdy if you need to hold on to something. And then if you're seated, you're gonna do more of just that swing forward. So that chair is gonna limit that ability to bring that leg back. So you're just gonna do almost a leg extension. So you're just swinging that leg forward. And again, if you're standing, swing that leg back and forward. So when we swing forward, we're getting a little bit of stretch on our hamstrings here. Then when we swing back, we're getting a little bit of a stretch on our quads, the front of our leg here. So we're just loosening up that leg some. And then we can go ahead and switch legs. So same thing, other leg. Again, if you're standing, kicking that leg behind you and then swinging it forward. And then again, if you're seated, just doing those forward leg swings, those leg extensions. And then we're gonna get into some torso twists. So we're gonna loosen up that spine a little bit, work on that rotational aspect of our spine. So you wanna be nice and tall, so you want that torso nice and upright. And then we're just rotating to one side. We're stopping wherever that natural stopping point is for you. So where your body wants to stop, don't try to force anything beyond that. Just nice and gentle, side to side. Important you wanna stay nice and upright. All right, and then we're gonna loosen up those shoulders a little bit with these next two. So we're gonna start with some shoulder rolls. So a couple of ways you could do this. You could go up, back, and then down. So you can kind of do those backward circles. Or you could go the forward route, so you can go up, forward, and down. So either option is good. Just rolling those shoulders in a circle, either forward or backward. All right, and then we're gonna finish off with some arm circles. So if you have any shoulder issues, just kind of keep those circles a little smaller, keep those arms down a little lower, and just kind of keep things in a comfortable range of motion for you. So we're just starting with small circles, either clockwise or counterclockwise. We'll do both directions. So just start with small circles and then just kind of making your way to a larger circle. Again, keeping it in that comfortable range. And then we can go ahead and switch direction. So again, starting small, just going that opposite direction now. And then just kind of working your way towards the larger circle. But again, keeping it in that comfortable range of motion for you. All All right, so that's gonna be our warm up. So then we're gonna move on to our resistance band workout. And again, you don't have to use resistance bands for this. You could use other items that you have around the house, including just body. So we're gonna break the exercises into 3 parts. The first group of exercises is exercises where we have our feet on top of the band. And then we're gonna do some exercises where we have the band around our torso. And then we're gonna finish off with some exercises where we're just holding the band in front of us. So we're gonna separate things that way. And we're gonna start with large muscle groups and then work our way to smaller muscle groups as we move along. So first, we're gonna start with the exercises where the band is underneath our feet. And again, you can use multiple bands. You can just tighten up your grip to add a little bit more resistance. So adjust the resistance level based on your needs, your ability. We're gonna start with our legs first. Again, it's gonna be a large muscle group. So feel free to use a heavier band if you'd like. So a couple different options for this. So you could do this from a standing position and just doing a bit of a squat. You could do it from that seated position and a couple different options from there. So you could work on that ability to get up out of the chair. So doing more of a sit to stand, whether you need the assistance of your hands or you have those arms crossed over your chest, either option. Or you can do a leg press if you're gonna stay in that seated position. So that's gonna be demonstrated in the chair. Otherwise, the squat's gonna be right over here with me. So for the squat, I like to just bring those fans up right in the middle of my torso and just hold my hands out in front. We're gonna bend those knees, feet are about shoulder width apart, and then we're gonna hinge those hips back. So we're kind of sticking our butt out behind us a bit. So we're hinging those hips back, that torso comes forward a little bit, and then we're bending those knees, and we're only going down to whatever is a comfortable depth for you. So feel free, you could just do a mini squat, push yourself back up, or you could go down, again, whatever you're comfortable with. Have a chair behind you if you need it. It's good for just safety, but it's also gives you an idea of how far you'd have to go down to sit down into one of your chairs. So going down and then you're pushing those feet through the floor and squeeze those glutes to bring those hips back forward, and then you're heading back down. Don't forget to breathe, so you're breathing out as you push yourself back up, and then breathing back in. And last one here. All right. So next we're gonna move on to a back exercise, so another large muscle group. So the standing position is gonna be the same setup. So our feet are about shoulder width apart. We're gonna bend those knees, and then we're gonna hinge those hips back. So again, we're sticking our butt out behind us a bit. That brings our torso forward a little. And then we wanna draw that belly button in closer towards our spine. So think about sucking that belly button in. It's gonna help stabilize that low back. And then from this position, our arms are right at our side. And we're just pulling those elbows back, squeezing those shoulder blades together at the top. Then we resist the pull of the band on the way back down. So we're just rowing those elbows back, squeeze those shoulder blades, and slowly back down. So pulling those elbows back, and then resist the pull. Keeping that back fairly straight. Again, we're keeping that belly button drawn in closer towards our spine. Then that seated version, you're just having those feet in front of you. The bands are still underneath your feet there. You're seated nice and tall, shoulders are back. And then from that same position, you're just pulling those elbows back and then squeezing those shoulder blades together. Couple more here. Right. So next, we're gonna move on to some smaller muscle groups. So we're gonna work on our biceps, the front side of our arm here, and then we're gonna work our shoulders. So first we're gonna do our bicep exercise. So there's gonna just be some bicep curls. So for this position, feet about shoulder width apart, kind of whatever's comfortable for you. You wanna be standing nice and tall, shoulders are back, draw that belly button in again. Arms are just right at your side, and then all we're doing is we're bending at the elbow, so we're flexing at the elbow, bringing those hands up towards our shoulders, and then slowly back down. So we wanna resist the pull, we wanna resist gravity on the way back down. So we wanna nice and easy on the way back down, and then up, easy on the way down. So for this exercise, the only thing that's really moving is our forearms. So our upper arms are staying right at our side. Our back is staying nice and straight. Just our forearms that are moving. And that seated position is gonna be the same setup. The only difference is if you're using a resistance band, you're just gonna wanna tighten up that grip a little bit. You're probably gonna have a band that's a little longer than you need, so you just have to loosen up that slack some. And 2 more here. So then moving on to our shoulders. So our shoulders are a small muscle group and they tend to fatigue a little faster. So if you need to change out your band for something a little lighter, go ahead and do that. Again, you can also loosen up that grip some. So 2 options we have for a shoulder exercise. So it really just depends on if you have any previous or current shoulder issues. You maybe have trouble bringing those arms up overhead. If that's the case, you can do a side raise and a front raise. So a side raise would be just bringing those arms out to the side, and then a front raise would just be bringing those arms forward. And you're only bringing them up to whatever is a comfortable height for you. So again, if you have trouble bringing those arms up overhead, just bringing them up to whatever is a comfortable height and then coming back down. The alternative is if you don't have any shoulder issues, you have no discomfort going up overhead, is we can do a shoulder press. So for this one, if you're gonna stand and do it, it's gonna be the same setup if you're seated. Gonna bend those knees a little bit, feet about shoulder width apart. You're gonna keep those elbows in front, and then you're pushing up above you. So imagine you have a stack of plates or something and you're trying to put them up in a cabinet on that top shelf there. So you're keeping those arms in front and then just lifting up. So again, we want to keep that belly button drawn in, help stabilize that low back. So again, you could do this shoulder press, or you could do that front raise and side raise. So again, that front raise, side raise, it's gonna be if you have any shoulder issues, any discomfort. It's gonna be a little easier on that shoulder. So if you're concerned with that, if you have any discomfort, switch to that particular exercise. Otherwise, we have this shoulder press. Breathing out as you push up and back in. A couple more. Okay. So then we're gonna move on to an exercise for our hips. So our hip stability. So we have our rotator cuff in our shoulder, and that provides most of the stability to our shoulder here, even though they're small muscle groups. We also kind of have something similar at our hip. So we have our glute muscles right on the side of our hip. Those are our hip stabilizers. So they're gonna provide some stability to our hip. So I like to think of it as working our rotator cuff of our hip here. So for this one, we're just gonna be doing resisted side steps. So just side steps with the added resistance of a band. So if you're standing, again, you're still on top of that band there. Feet are about shoulder width apart. You're gonna bend those knees a little bit, and then you can just bring both ends of the band right in the middle here. And you can pull up if you need a little bit more resistance. But all we're doing is we're pushing out with the side of one leg. So we're pushing out with that leg, and then we're resisting the pull of the band as we bring this other leg back in. And then we just head the opposite way. So we push out, resist the pull. Push out, resist the pull. Push out, resist the pull. The seated version of this is going to be the same thing. So you're pushing out with the side of that foot and resisting that pull. Keeping those knees bent a little bit if you're in this standing position. So we're working those muscles right on the side of our hip here. And this is one where you could probably get away with a little bit heavier of a band if you'd like. Just small steps, pushing with the side of that foot, and then gently, slowly bringing that other leg back in. So you don't want to just let it slide back in, have that band pull it back in. We want to resist that pull. So kicking out, resist the pull. Kicking out, resist the pull. A few more rotations here. And last one. All right. So that's our first round of these exercises where we're standing on the band. We'll do our second round and then we'll move on to our other exercises. So we're gonna get back to that leg exercise. So again, we can do the squat from the standing position. From the seated position, we could do a sit to stand where we're just working on that ability to get up out of the chair. And that could be done with or without a band. And you can use your hands if you need that additional support. Or you could do a leg press, which is gonna just be bending one knee, bringing that closer towards your torso, and having that band underneath your foot, and then you're just pressing out in front of you. Except this time around, the second set, you would just do that other leg, so we'd get one set for each leg. So one of those three options, again, pick the one that's best suited for you. If you're gonna stand, gonna bend those knees, feet about shoulder width apart, and again, we're gonna hinge those hips back. So we're hinging those hips back, kind of sticking that butt out behind us a little bit. That's gonna bring our torso forward some. We wanna draw that belly button in closer towards our spine. We can pull up on the band if we need a little bit more resistance. And then we're just bending those knees, only going down to whatever is a comfortable depth for you. So don't feel like you need to go down all the way. So going down to whatever's a comfortable depth, and then you're pushing those feet through the floor, squeezing those glutes to bring those hips back forward to that neutral position. So bending those knees, pushing yourself back up, squeeze those glutes, and then back down. Breathing out as you come up, and then back in. Again, that sit to stand is essentially the same process. So working on that ability to get up out of the chair. And again, you can do that with or without a band. You can even do these squats without a band too, so if you're not quite at that level where you need some resistance. And then that leg press, again, you're just, with that bent knee, you're just pressing that foot out in front of you with that added resistance of that band around the foot. And last one here. All right, so then moving on to our row, so our back exercise again. So if you're standing from this same position, we're just gonna bend those knees. Again, hinge those hips back some. It's gonna bring that torso forward. Arms are just right at your side. And then we're just pulling those elbows back, squeezing those shoulder blades together. So you wanna keep that belly button drawn in again, because we wanna stabilize that low back when we do these exercises. Just pulling back, squeeze those shoulder blades together. Imagine you're trying to pinch something in between them when they come together. Breathing out as you pull those arms up and back in. Keeping that back straight. Again, keeping that belly button drawn in. Couple more. So then moving on to our biceps and our shoulders again. So again, it's a little bit smaller muscle group, so feel free to change the band if you need to. So we're gonna start with our bicep curls. Same position whether you're seated or standing. Again, that seated position, you might just need to tighten up the grip a little bit, take out some of that slack, but bend those knees a little bit. Shoulders are back, so your torso's nice and upright. Same thing if you're seated. Draw that belly button in closer towards your spine. Then we're just bending at the elbow, bringing those hands closer towards our shoulders, and then we're resisting that pull on the way back down. Breathing out as we bring those hands up and back in. Only thing we're moving is those forearms, so our upper arms staying right at our side. Our back is staying nice and straight. Two more. And moving on to our shoulder exercise. So again, there's two options for this. So if you're have any shoulder issues or discomfort, current or previous shoulder injuries, sticking with that front raise and that side shoulder raise, only bringing those arms up to whatever's a comfortable height for you. The other option is that shoulder press. So bringing those arms in front, keeping those elbows in front of you, draw that belly button in closer towards your spine. Same as you would do with the front and side raise. And then you're just pressing up and slowly back down. Again, imagine you're putting something up on a high shelf. Just kind of pressing up and back down. Again, if you have any discomfort with this one, stick with the front and the side raises. Those are going to be easier on your shoulder. Breathing out as you lift up, and then breathing back in. Couple more. All right, so then we're back to our hip exercise. So again, we're working on that rotator cuff of our hip, those hip stabilizers. So from this same position, still standing on that band, we're gonna tighten up that band and bring both ends towards the middle now. Same setup if you're in that seated position. Standing, you're gonna bend those knees a little bit, and then we're pressing out with the side of our foot, so we're taking a step to the side, and then we're resisting the pull of that band on that other foot as we bring our legs back together. So we're kicking out with the side of our foot, resisting that pull. Kicking out, resisting that pull. Again, just fairly small steps, just kicking out, resist the pull. Kicking out, resist the pull. Bending those knees a little bit. Again, if you need more resistance, just tighten up that band, pull up on it a little bit. Working on those glute muscles right on the side of our hip here. That's where you should feel it. And really focusing on kicking out with the side of your foot and resist that pull. A couple more rotations here. All right. So then, we're gonna go ahead and take the band up off the floor now. And we're gonna bring that band around our back, around our torso. So it's gonna be the same positioning for these exercises as you would do standing. So the same setup for seated. So we're gonna bring those bands around the back of our torso there. And then I like to bring my arms up over top. I feel like it's a little more secure. You could have the bands continue to come over the top of those arms, but I happen to just like bringing my arms up over top. And we're gonna start with a chest exercise. So think about a bench press or a push-up where you're kind of pushing those arms in front of you. That's gonna be the same sort of exercise that we're doing. So we're just gonna do a chest press, except it's gonna be with these bands, and we're just standing in this vertical position. So if you're standing, you want a nice stable base, bend those knees a little bit. If you're seated, you just want to be seated nice and tall. Again, draw that belly button in closer towards your spine. Your shoulders are back. And then we're just pressing out in front of us. And then we're resisting that pull on the way back in. So pressing out, resisting that pull. Pressing out, resisting that pull. So we're breathing out as we push, then back in. Breathing out, and back in. Again, keeping those shoulders back, keeping that torso nice and upright. Continuing to breathe. We're keeping those elbows not right at our side, but kind of right in the middle there, so we don't want them flared out to the side, so kind of just in this middle range. Again, you can tighten up your grip if you need to, or loosen it up if you have too much resistance. All right. So next we're gonna do our triceps. So this is gonna be the back of our arm. So our triceps help to straighten our elbow, or straighten our arm at the elbow. That's their function. So all we're gonna be doing is that motion with some resistance. So from the same position, you're just gonna bring those arms up. I like to have my hands kind of together, my forearms fairly close to each other. So bringing those elbows up, not quite to 90. We also don't want them right at our side. So again, kind of somewhere in that middle range. And again, remember the triceps, they straighten the arm. So that's all we're doing. So we're straightening that arm, and that band's providing a little bit of resistance to this activity. You can play around with the elbow position. You might find that maybe having those elbows a little lower, or maybe a little higher, is a bit more of a tricep exercise for you. So you can play around with that elbow position. We're just straightening those arms in front of us, and then resist that pull on the way back in. Breathing out as we push those arms out in front, and then back in. Keeping that back straight. Again, draw that belly button in to stabilize that low back. Last one here. All right, so then we're gonna go back and do our second set of our chest press. So again, we're already in that same position that we need to be in. If you're standing, again, you want a nice stable base, bend those knees a bit. Shoulders are back, torso's nice and upright. So if we let those shoulders kind of roll forward, we're gonna be doing a little bit more of a shoulder exercise. So we wanna keep those shoulders back, kind of squeeze those shoulder blades together a bit. And then we're pressing out in front. And then we're resisting that pull on the way back in. So pressing out, resisting that pull. Pressing out, resist that pull. Again, think about a push-up or a chest press. We're doing that same movement, just in this standing or seated position, so this is a vertical upright position. Otherwise, it's the same movement. And last one here. All right, so then we're back to our tricep exercise, our second set of this tricep extension. So again, we bring those fists up together, forearms are close by. Again, we have our elbows bent, and then we're bringing those elbows up to somewhere kind of in this middle range here. And then all we're doing is we're just straightening those arms out in front. And then we resist the pull on the way back in. So straightening those arms, resist that pull. Breathing out as we push out, and then back in. Again, play around with that elbow position. You might find maybe a little higher, maybe a little lowers. Gonna feel that tricep a little bit more. And last one here. All right, so then we got a couple exercises left. These are kind of some posture exercises. So we're gonna bring this band out in front of us for these last two. The first one we're gonna start with is a band pull apart. So it's exactly like it sounds. We're gonna be pulling this band apart. So hands are about shoulder width apart. There's 3 different hand positions you could use. Pick the one that's comfortable for you. So try the different ones, find the one that's the most comfortable for you, and then stick with that one. So you could have your palms facing down. So you have this shoulder width grip, palms are facing down. You could have your palms facing each other, or you could have your palms facing up, which is the position that I happen to like. So again, palms up, palms facing each other, or palms down. So again, try those options, see if there's one that you like more than the other. So our arms are gonna be out in front of us, a little bit of bend in our elbow, but fairly straight out in front. Hands about shoulder width apart. And then we're pulling that band apart. And then we're squeezing those shoulder blades together. So we're just pulling that band apart, squeeze those shoulder blades. So we're rotating those arms out to the side, squeeze together, and then back out. If you feel like your shoulders are getting involved a little too much in this one, just kind of lower those arms a bit. Breathing out as you pull those arms apart. And 2 more. Next exercise we're going to do is an external shoulder rotation. So we can internally rotate our shoulders. Think about throwing that ball, rotating in. We can also externally rotate it. So think about that motion where you're cocking that arm back to throw something. That's that external shoulder rotation. So this is going to help strengthen our rotator cuff, but it's also a good posture exercise. It's helpful to keep those shoulders in that back upright position. So good posture. So for this one, it's kind of a similar setup, except our palms are going to be facing each other for this one. So palms are facing each other, hands are about shoulder width apart again. Our elbows are going to be bent at about 90 degrees, and then we're sticking those elbows right in our side here. So we're keeping those elbows nice and close to our torso. Then all we're doing is we're just pulling those hands farther apart from each other. Again, keeping those elbows tucked. One option is you could have like a rolled up towel you could put right in between your torso and your elbow, kind of squeeze that in there. And that way, if you do lift up that elbow, that towel is gonna fall, so it's kind of a good tactile cue to keep those elbows tucked. Keeping those elbows tucked, pulling those hands farther apart from each other. So all we're doing is we're just providing that resistance to that external shoulder rotation. And just a few more here. Again, keeping those elbows tucked, keeping those shoulders back. All right, and then we'll do our second run through of these 2 exercises, and then we'll finish off with some flexibility. So again, back to that band pull apart. You can have those palms facing down, you can have those palms facing each other, or you can have those palms facing up. Again, I like to have my palms up. They're kind of also slightly facing each other too as I pull those bands apart. But again, pick the option that's suitable for you. Have a nice stable base, arms out in front, and then again, we're pulling those bands apart, Squeeze those shoulder blades when you get to this end range. So our shoulder blades are gonna kind of rotate behind us. So then when we get to that end range, our shoulder blades are fairly close to each other, and then we squeeze together, and then we relax and come back towards the middle. So we pull apart, shoulder blades are rotating, and then we squeeze them together, and then back out. Again, keep those arms a little lower if you feel like your shoulders are doing most of the work. Really focusing on just pulling those bands apart and then squeezing those shoulder blades together. Breathing out as you pull apart. And last one here. All right, so then we're gonna finish off with that external shoulder rotation. So again, hands are about shoulder width apart. Palms are facing each other for this one. Elbows are bent, again, about 90 degrees, and we're tucking those elbows in right at our side. And then we're just pulling those hands farther apart from each other while we keep those elbows tucked. So we're externally rotating our shoulder, and we're just adding this resistance to that movement. That's all resistance exercising is. So it's just adding some resistance to movements that we typically do, stressing the body a bit, which is how we get stronger. So we want things to be slightly challenging, but not too easy. Keeping those elbows tucked, shoulders back, a few more here. Last one. All right. So then we can go ahead and put our bands off to the side now, and we're gonna finish off with some flexibility, some stretching. So again, I like to start from the top, kind of work my way down the body. So we're gonna start with our neck first. So we're gonna stretch the sides of our neck. A common place to hold a lot of tension. And then it's also, if our neck is tight, that could lead to some poor posture with that forward head posture, kind of pulls that head down and forward. So we want to loosen those up a little bit. So we're just going to tilt our head to one side. And it's important you want to keep this opposite shoulder down. So you don't want to lift it up. So if you have trouble with that, just make a fist, kind of punch towards the ground. That's going to help keep that shoulder in that down position. Tuck that chin. And you're just tilting that head to the side. I want to feel a nice stretch on the side of your neck here. With our stretches, we're just holding them for about 30 seconds or so. If you need a little bit more of a stretch, you could always apply a little bit of pressure to the side of your head. Doesn't take much, but in general, for most of us, this is going to be sufficient, just holding this position. And then we can go ahead and switch sides, so bringing that head to that opposite side now. And again, we're keeping this shoulder down. Keeping that chin tucked. All right, next we're gonna move down to our shoulders and our upper back. So we're gonna do an arm cross. So we're bringing one arm across our torso, and we're using our other hand to pull that arm a little bit closer towards our torso. So I like to kind of pull in and then slightly out. So we're stretching out that shoulder girdle a little bit. So with our stretches, we want to stretch to the point of some tension. We don't want a lot of discomfort. If you get any discomfort with any of these stretches, skip these particular stretches. But we're looking for just some slight stretching, slight discomfort. So we're just stretching those muscles out, but we don't want anything painful. All right, so we can go ahead and switch arms. So we're bringing that other arm across our body, keeping that thumb kind of up. And then we're pulling that arm in. And then again, I like to pull slightly out. All right, and then the next exercise we're gonna do, it's not really a stretch, I like to call it a movement. So we're gonna do this posture movement where we're getting a little bit of stretch on the front side of our torso, and then we're helping to strengthen those muscles in the back side of our upper torso. So it's helping with posture, keeping that upright, shoulders back position. So we're gonna bring those arms up in front of us. Our elbows are bent about 90 degrees. Palms are just facing each other. And then we're just rotating out. And then when we get to this end range, we want to kind of just squeeze those shoulder blades together, hold this position briefly, and then come back to the start. So we're rotating out, squeeze, and back. Again, we're just rotating out to whatever is a comfortable distance for you. So you might not be able to go back all this way. So just kind of rotating out and then back in. Just keeping that upright posture, keeping those shoulders back. Couple more here. Right, so then these last two, I prefer doing them in a seated position. I'll show them from a standing position though. And then you can pick and choose between the two. Standing position is just a bit more work. It's a bit of a balance exercise because we're almost standing on one foot. So if you're gonna do it standing, have something sturdy that you can hold on to while you do this stretch. So first one we're gonna do is our hamstrings. So this is gonna be the back side of our leg here. This is something I always like to stretch. With a lot of seated activity that we do these days, they're constantly in a shortened state. So when we bend our knee, those hamstrings shorten. So think about that seated position where foot's flat on the floor, knee is bent, and how much time we spend in that position, how much time our hamstrings are in that shortened position. It's a good amount of the day. So we want to keep those stretched out. So for this one, you're just gonna have one leg straight out in front of you. Your torso's nice and upright, shoulders are back. And we're gonna hinge forward from our hips. So you're gonna bend at the hips there. So we're not gonna just roll our back down. We wanna keep that back nice and straight, shoulders back. We're hinging at the hips. So then as we move forward, we're tightening that hamstring, stretching it out. So bending forward. So again, I get that nice stretch on that underside of that leg. And again, we hold our stretches for about 30 seconds or so. Again, if you're standing, have something to hold on to if you need it. This does become a bit of a balance exercise. And then we can go ahead and switch legs. So again, we're just taking that other leg straight out in front of you. I'll turn to the side this time so you can see a little better. So straight out in front. Again, we're keeping that torso nice and upright. Shoulders are back. So nice and straight torso there. And then we're hinging forward from our hips. So again, we're not just rolling our back forward. We want to keep that back nice and straight. Hinging at our hips there. Until you get that nice stretch on that underside of your leg there. So So our hamstrings actually cross two joints, so they attach below the knee. So you might feel this stretch kind of on the underside of your knee, maybe slightly below that. They also attach up on our pelvis here. So think about a rubber band. If you pull a rubber band tight, like our hamstrings might be, both those ends are gonna have a little bit of tension, so that could cause some pulling, some tension around your knee, up on your hip there. So we wanna keep these nice and stretched out. All right, so then we're gonna finish off with some ankle circles. So not necessarily a stretch, but we're gonna work on that mobility of moving that ankle on a full range of motion. But we're also working some of those muscles that help lift that foot up. Because when it comes to falls, a lot of the times it's that inability to lift up that toe, whether it's taking a step over something or you just trip on your own foot. So we wanna work on those muscles that help lift us up, lift that toe up. So all we're gonna be doing is we're just gonna be doing some toe circles, some ankle circles. So pick a direction, rolling that ankle in a circle. So when we lift up those toes, we're working on those shin muscles that help pull that foot up. And we're working on mobility as well, so maintaining that full range of motion in our ankle. Then we can go ahead and switch directions, so heading back that opposite way. And again, if you're doing this standing, typically you'd have something sturdy to hold on to, because again, we're standing on one foot now. So it's a bit of a balance exercise. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and switch feet. So other ankle now. So again, pick that direction. Roll in the big circle. And then switch directions. Finish us off here. All right. So that'll do it for our resistance band workout. So we hit all of our major muscle groups, 2 sets. You could do this workout, just do the 1 set, or you could do a 3rd set, just kind of depends on where you're at in terms of your ability right now. But that's our resistance band workout. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to check out our other videos here on our YouTube page. And until next time, keep moving.